Hey everyone, hey Amardip. Welcome everyone to another episode of the 75 Days of Partition. Today is day 4, and here I've got with me Amardip Kumar. He is a former story scholar with the 1947 Partition Archive, and he documented oral histories a few years ago over a course of 6 months in the Delhi area when he was a student of computer science at JNU. And he's going to talk a little bit about his discovery of the history of partition through what people experienced and share that with you. So welcome, Amardeep. So Amardeep, let me ask you, first of all, what made you decide to document oral histories when you were actually professionally studying to be a computer scientist?
Yeah, so thank you, Gunita, and hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my experience as a story scholar. So, when I was doing my bachelor's and master's before coming to JNU, one of my friend, he was actually working for this organization. He was documenting those oral stories, and then from him I got to know about it, and I was pretty much interested uh, the working activity of this organization, which were trying to document all those lost stories. So generally in our history textbooks, in our school textbooks, we don't read enough about the partition, although it is the largest migration in the human history. But they are very less talked about, and there has to be more work on documenting, on finding what exactly happened to those people, and this organization was exactly doing that. So I was pretty much interested, and at the same time it was interesting because it invited oral historians and historians, irrespective of their academic discipline. So that they gave me the opportunity to join and work and continue the wonderful work that the organization were doing.
And why do you think it's important to document these stories as somebody who has documented them?
Yeah, so this is the first account from the witness of partition that we are recording. So what happens is we travel through their memory. So initially we start by talking about their situation in their birthplace, and what happened, slowly unfolding, taking the time into the day of partition and then after the partition. So the whole timeline we travel in a duration of at least 1 hour. Mostly the interviews are 1.5 hours or 2 hours. Some of the interviews are more than 3 hours. So in that way, we have a comprehensive idea of what the survivor of this partition have gone through. So this is the one of a kind, which I don't think earlier any of the organization have done it before, recording from the first account witness. So that gave me an idea of how interesting this project is, and at the same time, once we have these documented stories, it gives so many avenues for the researcher, for the independent scholar to dig through those stories, and based on their perception, the interpretation which they are pretty much allowed to take on with along with their research areas. So it gives us the huge corpus through which we can take the lessons, and we can travel through the different forms of understanding regarding the partition. So it will broaden our understanding per se, and it will also give opportunity to future generation to see, to look at the partition as it happened more than 70 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before I dig a little bit further into your personal learnings from this work, why don't you show us some of the stories that you've gathered? Because that can kind of help us understand your learnings.
Absolutely. I recorded more than 60 stories when I was in Delhi, along with my story scholar program. So from that, it was very hard to pick those 5 stories, but still, since we have the time crunch, I managed to pick these 5 stories. So the first one is Indira Nanda. So she was born in Delhi, and she was 11 years old when she witnessed the partition in Delhi. And in this story, she describes the change that she has seen unfolding in those times of partition. So it was not one day event, as she mentioned in her interview, and it has gone through a period of 5 6 years before the year of partition 47, because it started way ahead. She has witnessed the riots breaking out in the main markets of Delhi, in, for example, Chandni Chowk, and she was in the central part of Delhi, near the Lutyens Delhi. So she describes in this interview what are those changes that she has gone through. And when I recorded the story, she was staying with her husband, who is also happened to be a partition witness and who was born in Lahore. And yeah, so she was staying in RK Puram in Delhi when I recorded the story. Now, the second one, this is another incredible story of endurance and how he managed to fought back the very dismal condition, the economic condition. And Mr. Mathur, when he crossed the border in the time of partition, he was only a student. He was in just left the school and he was joining a college. Later on, he gone on to become an officer in the Indian Audit and Accounting Services. And in 93, when he retired from the job, he devoted his after retirement life into writing stories and letting people know about his experiences about partition. So at the time of interview, he was also working on his memoirs. So
Do you
and
know if
another
it's
one, yeah.
out? Sorry to interrupt. Do we know if his memoir is out?
Not yet. The last time I checked, last year actually, it was not published yet. But I
You
don't
know,
know. I mean, this year I have not got the opportunity to interact. But yeah, that's something which we are pretty looking forward to.
I've noticed that he has actually posted on our Reconnect group, and
Oh.
there's been some beautiful interactions between him and some of the young people living in Lahore now. I think
Mhm.
he's been sharing some older photos and trying to ask for more information. And so that's been really neat. And I'm pretty sure it's him because it's this exact name.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful, and he's very interested, to interact. As you mentioned, at the time of interview, he was very jovial, and he was looking to, like it's like a second innings after the retirement. He wanted to devote all his life into understanding and to spread out, because we share the same ground, as in how we have talked very less about partition, and it needs to be talked about more. The next one is, oh yeah, so for this one I traveled to Karnal, Haryana. Uh, Mr. Khurana, he hails from Khanewal, which happens to be in the Punjab province before partition. And interestingly, after coming to Karnal, which again, like many other partition survivors, he had to begin his life again. And at the time of interview in 2019, so there were a lot of people who have transferred, who have migrated during the partition, and they have managed to sort of create a mini market, because Khanewal was quite popular for the dress market, for the garments, and they have managed to set up a small mini market kind of thing by the name of Khanewal, to keep their memory and their nostalgia intact in the Karnal itself. So that was one of the interesting examples of how people have fought back from partition with their will, with their strong will, and with their positive outlook. The next one is Basdev Mehta. Now, Mr. Mehta, uh, he actually fought, like literally fought with the Pakistan embassy in Delhi to grant him the visa to visit his birthplace. And after a struggle of almost 3 years, he managed to convince them that it is his right to visit his birthplace. And finally, he got the visa, and he traveled and actually took a photo exactly at the birthplace. And it was hard to identify for him. In 2003, he managed to click a picture in front of his ancestral property. So it was for him, it was like an achievement of a lifetime. And he was expressing all this story in our interview that I have recorded in 2019.
I think there are so many people who have that same wish.
Yeah,
That's
but there,
amazing that he was able
exactly.
to pull it off.
Yeah. The last one of this lot that I have picked up is Miss Savitri Devi. Now, Miss Devi was born in Rangoon. At that time, it was Burma, part of the British Empire. And in 41, when the Japanese invasion happened in Burma, so her family, the whole family, they had to migrate to Faisalabad in Punjab province, which right now happen to be in Pakistan. And then again in 47, the family had to migrate to cross the border and come to the Amritsar. So in pretty early age, she had seen two migration in a very short interval of time. And at the time of interview, she was suffering through dementia. So in this particular interview, I had to record in three particular, I will say three different dates, and I had to. So it was one of the difficult tasks, but that's the most challenging part and most important one, because we have been recording the story of the last generation, possibly, of the partition. So there are many more people like them who want to tell their stories, but because of some of the medical condition, they are not being able to, come to the show. So yeah, these are the some of the glimpse of the stories that I could, and that gave me some of the experiences about it.
Oh, amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that. So what are some of your biggest learnings about partition as an event that you think you get from the stories that you don't get from textbooks, that you don't get from popular culture? So what are some of those big learnings?
Oh yeah, I mean the set of learning is huge, but I think one of the most important thing to realize is that there is no linear understanding of this of this event, of this historical event. I mean, there are so many aspects to it, and most of it are either appropriated by some of the political groups, I would say, and so the independent investigation and the independent understanding from different perspective of the research field is very much essential now to understand to have a comprehensive idea of the partition, what exactly happened, because the lot of documents are being either burnt at the time of at the time when British left officially the Indian subcontinent, and a lot of there are very less traces in the archive today. So we need more of the information, and oral history provides one of those avenues. So I think the biggest takeaway is to have a clear mind and look at the partition afresh, and to have a clear understanding what exactly happened.
And what else can people use in addition to oral history? I know there's a lot of people who doubt oral history. So what do you say on that?
I mean, it's pretty good to have when a researcher starts their program. It's very important to have a critical mind, but at the same time, I mean, we have other options. We have different methods to verify the story, and even in our interview process, we stress on the fact. We ask repeatedly, what was the year? Do you remember the name of the person you interacted with? So we refer those titles and the dates very specifically, and we try to cross check by asking different question. So these are the measures we take. We become a little bit cautious about in the interview, but even after the interview, when we put up this archive stories, when a researcher digs into these stories, I mean, a researcher has a lot of methods to verify, and at the same time, we have other version of the story by the renowned historians who have indicated time and again, like the loopholes, the shortcomings that we have in the existing narrative. Now we need to question that narrative, and if these stories find in some way incoherence with those stories, I mean, it's one of the way to go forward from that there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Amardip, for joining us. So everyone, again, this was day 4 of the 75 Days of Partition. We're here every single day around this time for short snippets into partition history with experts, into partition history and how it's being documented with practitioners like Amardip. So join us between now and August 17 and go back and watch some of the older episodes if you like. And let's uncover this history together so that we can learn from the past and move forward on a more informed footing. Thank you so much, Amardip, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.